For those who have tuned in, thank you for joining us. I'm Beth Portello with Cinema Libre Studio. We are the company distributing Megan Smith's film, bOObs, The War on Women's Breasts, and we're hosting the Q&A. And thank you all for signing up and logging in at this time of day. I'm going to keep this quick and turn it over to Megan and let her introduce Dr. V. So Megan, to you.
Okay, thank you, Beth. And this is Dr. V, the woman with the pretty blue and pink dress. And I'm going to let you say your name. I took French, but I'll probably massacre it. So your full name is?
Veronique Desaulniers.
Oh, see, there's no way.
Dr. V. It's easier.
It's a beautiful name. So I'm going to interview Dr. V a little bit, and she's going to tell us about her practice. And then we'll talk about my film a little bit, and then we'll take some Q&A from the audience. So, so Dr. V, you are a bioenergetic chiropractor by profession. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and the type of practice you have?
Yes, for 30 years I practiced in an office as a bioenergetic chiropractor, which basically means I looked at health in the body more than just pain and symptoms and spinal alignment. I looked at the whole body, and really when I started practicing way back in 1979, it was a long time ago, wellness was just starting to become a thing. And so I really focused on teaching my patients about natural healing and supplementation and better nutrition, exercise, chiropractic, all of that, and did a lot of testing, bioenergetic testing on the acupuncture meridian points, included thermography the last 10 years of my practice. And after I stopped practicing officially, I started sharing my personal healing journey with breast cancer, and one thing led to another. And my company, Breast Cancer Conqueror, on .com. My team and I have coached women in 57 countries, and I've got an Amazon #1 bestseller, Heal Breast Cancer Naturally. And we've really made a little dent in the breast cancer world, just to be able to teach women that breast cancer is not something you have to fear, because once you understand what cancer is and what cancer is not, you have a large measure of control over how your body can heal. And there's more than just one way of healing and reversing cancer.
I heard someone say, it may have been Suzanne Summers, I can't remember, I was interviewing, and she said, my body created this cancer and I can uncreate it.
Absolutely.
Really cool way to look at it, which
Absolutely.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, cancer is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just a symptom. It's not the cause. And so if you understand what allowed the cancer to grow, then you can undo that and, allow the body to heal if you give it what it needs.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So let's talk about your journey with breast cancer. You talked about, touched upon, it wasn't traditional. And tell us about your journey and what you did to reverse your cancer.
So 2004, I'm in the shower and I was doing a breast self-exam, which, by the way, standing up is not the way to do a proper breast exam. And I felt a lump in my left breast, and obviously one thing led to another. And I just had to really ask myself, how could somebody like me develop breast cancer? I thought I was doing everything right. And so I went down that path of really looking at my lifestyle, everything I was doing, and I realized there was, things that I was missing and things that allowed the cancer to show up. So I did nothing traditional, no chemo, no radiation, no surgery. And 2 years later, the lump was gone. I was no longer producing cancer. Thermography was clear, blood scans, everything was good. Fast forward 9 years, where I was now known as the Breast Cancer Conqueror, and I was doing all the coaching. I was working from sun up to sundown, just really overwhelmed, overworked, overstressed. And again, I created the perfect storm for cancer to show up again. But what I realized in my first healing journey is that I needed a system to help me make sure that I was covering all the bases of healing. And that's when I created the 7 Essential System. And that's covered in this book, Heal Breast Cancer Naturally. It's it's 7 steps that if you follow, you never have to fear cancer or any dis-ease for that matter. And so in my second healing journey, I really pulled back. I stopped coaching. I trained coaches to do the coaching for me. I really gave myself a lot of time to heal, to nurture, to do a lot of soul searching. I did a lot of IV infusions, just a lot of work. And it took me 3 years to heal the second time. And that was 2015 through 2018. So all is well, happy and healthy, and learned a lot of big lessons through those journeys.
Did you say you did a biopsy?
Never did a biopsy.
Okay.
I did not, for me, it didn't matter. I knew by the scans, the blood work, everything, ultrasounds, that there was cancer there. And cancer is cancer in my book. And I didn't want to cause the problem that a biopsy can cause. But for some women, it's important. For me, it wasn't.
And I touch upon this in my film about, I know this is, some of the literature supports this, but about the possible seeding of the cancer if you do get a biopsy. So that it's a tough decision for a woman have to make.
Totally.
Yeah. So you don't know what type of cancer you had then, because you didn't have it biopsied. It was just a cancer to you.
Yeah, I mean, it was breast cancer, obviously. The first one, I used the black salve and I expelled a tumor the size of a golf ball.
Oh my God.
So,
wow.
I knew it was cancer. That's for sure.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. I've heard of that. I've never met anybody who's
yeah, not pleasant. I don't recommend it.
There's other ways to do it. You didn't do that the second time.
No.
No. Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, good for you. Okay. So yeah. So talk about the 7 essential system that you came up with.
Well, I know our time is limited, so I'll be real brief on each of them. Essential number 1 is about food. Let food be your medicine. And so it's about making wise decisions when it comes to food, making sure you're eating organic most of the time, eliminating high carbs and sugars, because we know those things feed cancer. Really lots of vegetables, lots of greens, sprouted nuts, just good, sound nutrition. There's no one size fits all. Some people do well on a vegetarian diet. Some people do better when they're eating meat. So you've got to figure that out with your doctor, with your coach, to see which diet is best for you. Number 2 is to reduce your toxic exposure. And we know we live in a toxic world, but there are things that we can do to limit our exposure by the things we have in our home, the things we clean with, things we put on our skin, because all those things are going to impact our health in a big way. And make sure that you do things to help detox your body: saunas, sweating, rebounding, coffee enemas, all of those things. Number 3 is to balance your energy, and that means balancing your hormones, your sleep, exercise, chiropractic, acupuncture, all those things that help to balance your energy. Number 4 is to heal the emotional wounds, and that's a big one. A lot of women have a hard time with that, and that was a big one for me in my second healing journey. Spent a lot of time in really healing, nurturing that little girl, forgiving myself, forgiving others, really looking at my relationships, doing more things that brought me joy, less things that brought me pain. So it's really key, because we know that our mind can affect our healing ability. And if you have to be 1,000% convinced that your body will heal, because if you're vacillating, you're not sure, your body's going to feel the same way. Do I heal or don't I? Right? Mm-hmm. Number 5 is embracing biological dentistry. And that has to do with everything that you have in your mouth, making sure that you take care of root canals, metal fillings, because we know those metals are what we call xenometallogens, or estrogen stimulators, right? They'll mimic and stimulate estrogen in the body. So work with a biological dentist to make sure that your mouth is clean. Number 6 are all the therapeutic plants and herbs that will boost your immune system, kill cancer cells. Number 7 is embracing early detection, and this is where you're an expert in, as far as talking about thermography versus mammography. We know, we've seen the film, we've seen the studies. There's much better tools at our disposal. There's a lot of blood work that you can do to see if you have inflammatory markers, if you're moving towards that possibility of producing cancer. And then there's breast self-exams. Those are so important. So there's a tool called My Breast Friend. This was a tool that was created for doctors and nurses to be able to train to properly find in a clinical exam what a breast lump felt like in a woman's breast. Because we know our breasts are lumpy, right? So how do you distinguish between a cancerous or potentially cancerous lump and our regular breast tissue? And so the manufacturer of the organization, the Mammocare Foundation, asked me to make this look pretty, take it to the general public so women could learn how to do a proper exam. And so the kit comes with the model, it comes with a little booklet, but I want to show you this picture here. So the average size lump that a woman finds when she's not trained in a proper exam is the size of a ping pong ball. By the time she's properly trained in this method, she can find something the size of a pea. And size matters when it comes to breast cancer, right? The smaller the lump, the better the outcome. So the system teaches you three things. Number one is what to feel for. I mean, how do you know what a unhealthy lump feels like unless you've actually felt one in this model? And these are replicas of tumors that have been taken out of women's breasts. So what to feel for. Number two is where to feel. And it's not just the breast area, and the video will show you that, but you've got to get up into the collarbone, into the armpit, the side of the breast, underneath, on the, the chest bone, the sternum. And then how to feel. You don't feel with your fingertips, but you feel with the pads of your fingers, 3 fingers. You do little circles and you move down the grid and you do light, medium, and deep. Light, medium, and deep. You've got to go all the way down to the chest wall, because you can see this one here has a lump all the way down to the chest wall underneath the nipple. So it's a whole system that teaches you how to accurately do an exam, and that instructional video shows you exactly how to do it.
It's very interesting. And I do wish that my breast still felt like this.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right, they feel a little different.
Yeah, it's really cool though. Great. Well, so go back to a couple things. So one thing I hear over and over is the whole sugar fallacy. The doctors are like, no, sugar doesn't feed cancer. Sugar feeds every cell in your body. And that is the one thing you can do if you're going to change your diet. I mean, the first thing you should do is get out refined sugars. And I talked to a doctor over in Switzerland, the one that's in my film, and he was talking about even things like fruits, like soft fruits have more fructose in them versus hard fruits, and therefore they're worse for you if you're going to eat fruit, because the fructose feeds into the cycles, the TCA cycle and stuff faster, the metabolic cycles, which is really interesting. But it's kind of a nuance. But yeah, get rid of that sugar. And I had a friend that was just like, Megan, I talked to my oncologist and she said, no, that's wrong. Sugar does not feed cancer. I'm like, oh my gosh.
So ask them about the PET scan. So when you get a PET scan and you get radioactive glucose, what lights up first? It's the cancer cells, because cancer cells have more insulin receptor sites than a healthy cell. So they suck up that sugar first thing. So when it comes to sugar, cancer cells eat first. So definitely check your blood sugar levels, your insulin fasting, your HbA1c. Make sure that those metabolic pathways are low, because those can trigger insulin resistance, and that can open up pathways that can lead to cancer.
Yeah, and sugar is an inflammatory, it's inflammatory, period. And chronic diseases are inflammatory. So even if you don't have cancer, I mean, I try and avoid sugar as much as I can, just because of chronic diseases, which we're all getting right now. So
Totally
important. The other thing I wanted to talk about, the biological dentistry, Galina Magalka, who was in my film, she told me this story where she had, all of a sudden her thermogram started to change, and she's really healthy. And she said, what is going on? I'm doing everything right. And she looked, she took the thermogram up here. And sure enough, there was a hot spot. She had the tooth taken out, and boom, immediately within a month, I think she said the inflammation in her breast just went away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really fantastic.
Yeah, because your teeth are connected to your organs through the acupuncture meridian system. So in my case, I had a problem with number 14, and then I think it's like number 28 or 27 down here, both on the left side. And I had the issues with the left breast. So there's, we see a correlation 99% of the time.
Wow, that's amazing. Did you have root canal? Did you have root canal?
No root canals. I had cavitations. So
Okay.
cavitation is an infection in the bone after you've had an extraction.
Mhm.
And, you don't necessarily have symptoms, but you can see it on a 3D beam scan, cone scan, and then you can also see it through thermography. And so, you go to a dentist who specializes in cleaning out the cavitations, and literally it's a hole in the bone. And I've got a picture of a client who had cavitation surgery done, and the dentist took a picture, and it's literally a hole in the bone that the bacteria is eaten away, and it's all infected. Very, very fascinating.
Yeah, dentistry is more complicated than I think people realize. I didn't know that. I thought that was interesting. Okay, well, and emotional wounds, one other story. Dr. Tony down in Hope for Cancer?
Oh, yes. No,
So
very well.
Yeah, so he told me that he was the first one I heard this emotional healing. He said, I've never met anybody to be able to get over their cancers, no matter what they're doing, unless they get rid of the wound, the stress, right, that started it. And sometimes it's an emotional trauma. And he had this one woman that her breast cancer wouldn't go away. And he said, there's something we haven't figured out about you. And finally it came out, and it was a doozy. I won't go into it. But immediately her cancer just started melting away as soon as she tapped into that really awful story that she'd gone through as a kid. So that's really important that you try and alleviate. I know I had a problem when I was stressed out with work, and I said, well, I'll just keep working for another year. I'll be fine. And my body went, no, you're not going to be fine. You're going to have to quit now. So stress is really important to get that out like what you said. You only did fun things and got rid of the bad things, and to alleviate stress.
That's right. Because if your body feels like it's being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, you're not going to heal, right? You're always in the fight or flight mode. So
Right.
we teach our clients to get into the relaxation response every single day. And that brings your parasympathetic nerve system down, and your immune system can function better. So it's key.
So yoga and meditation and all that.
Meditation, heart math app, EFT, all those things that really support healing.
And all the stuff that you just mentioned is in your book.
Yeah.
Is that right? Great.
It is.
It's the #1 bestseller on Amazon. Okay, so we're just gonna switch over a little bit. And so my film is, as I guess most of you watching right now probably saw my film about breast cancer screening. Just how I got into that. I started filming in 2015 about alternative cancer therapies after my husband had passed away from lung cancer. I knew there was a better way, and we'd been using some things on him that were working, but he said, I don't get this stuff, Megan. So, he followed conventional and didn't work out. So I said, I want to do something. And I'd seen Ty Bollinger's amazing series. So I started traveling around the world with a cinematographer, and I'm in the editing booth, I'm halfway through editing, and 10 minutes of my 90-minute film were on breast cancer screening. And I went, boy, this is really something, because Dr. Ben and Dr. Melina Galco had told me about thermography and ultrasound. And when I looked into it, I was like, oh my gosh, they're right about all these terrible things with mammogram, but nobody's talking about this. So I said, I'm going to stop what I'm doing, take the 10-minute film, expand it into a 30-minute film, and take it around the film festivals. And that's when Cinema Libre, God bless them, took me on as a client, and they said, but you need to have a 60 to 90-minute film. I was thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to come up with 60 minutes? Next thing I know, I have 95 minutes. Because there's so much. And I'm still researching this stuff. I'm now writing a book on everything, because there's even more information that I've stumbled across. The more I look at one research article, and then next thing I know, I'm looking at the research they were looking at, and I'm like, oh my God, that's not being reported. For instance, what I came across about dense breast tissue is everyone's going, if you have dense breast tissue, you're more susceptible to cancer, but we don't know why. I kept reading that over and over in associations. And I went, well, and then I started to looking at, like, I looked at the cell physiology, and all those articles were saying, well, actually breast cancer, or breast tissue is made of fatty tissue and fibroglandular. And the glandular part of that is the stuff called epithelial tissue. That stuff is radiation sensitive. So I went, so now we have a, more dense breast. You're going to have more of this glandular tissue, and those breasts are getting more cancer. Well, in order to see through the dense breast tissue, they have to crank up the radiation. I didn't know that. And women don't know that because we're just standing in there with our breasts in a grip. They're cranking up the radiation tech, so that the radiologist can see through the dense breast tissue. So I'm like, well, maybe the reason women with dense breast tissue are getting more cancer is because they're cranking up the radiation, and it's more radiation sensitive. And nobody was putting that together. The cell physiologists were actually talking about that. They said, we really don't think that mammograms might be the best, test for women that have dense breast tissue. And I was like, well, that's 90% of us. We all have some degree of it, and 50% of us are in the higher categories. So I just came across all that and put that puzzle together. And I said, the story is just getting uglier and uglier the more I research. So, yeah.
And I love, I really love the title of your film, the war on women's breasts or health or whatever it is, but it is a war.
Yeah.
Because, the pink month that we just came through it's appalling, because they're trolling for business, and they're, pushing women into mammography, which half the time it misses things. And they have you come back for second and thirds, and then there's the false positives, and there's, what if there's a small tumor in there, and then they radiate it and they compress it. It's possible that you can be spreading, millions of malignant cells throughout the body. So to me, it's a dangerous tool. I've never had a mammogram. I can happily say I've never had one. I don't plan on ever having one.
Yay, good for you. I don't think I actually had that many over my lifetime. I don't really want to know. But as of 6 years ago, I stopped having them, and I started having thermograms. And in the film, I have that, I wasn't going to put myself in the film, but I was like, it'd be good to have somebody get a thermogram. I thought, well, the audience will never know it's me. I'll put myself in there. And next thing you know, they're saying, oh, you have something wrong with your breast. I'm like, what? And so Dr. Ben says, you have a temperature differential between your two breasts. And I was like, oh my God. So then somebody said, Megan, you need to put yourself in this film. And I was like, oh God. So I put myself in there, and then I said, okay, well, I'm going to do that. Let's see what happens if I change my lifestyle. And then a year later, I had another thermogram. I had no idea what I was going to find, but it had reversed. And so both breasts had the same temperature. And I was actually having pain in the left breast, the one that was the temperature problem, and that went away. And I've never had it since. Now, since COVID, we've all been eating probably more junk food than we would. And we're not, I usually run through the grocery store, and I'm not grabbing organic. I'm just grabbing whatever I can to get out of there real fast. I don't do that so much now, but I was. And sure enough, I had a thermogram, and because of the stress and everything, and my breast went back, the inflammation had come back, not the pain. So now I'm working on trying to, get back to where I was. But
and we've got, I don't know how many thermograms of our clients before and after, with breast cancer, and after they follow our program and they're clean and they're healthy, they go from red and inflamed to green and blue and cool. And, mine is just, I had so much inflammation, so much vascularity feeding that tumor. First time around, it was amazing. It's so obvious.
Yeah, I that's what I love about thermography, is it's truly a preventative cancer. It can be used as a preventative cancer because you can see the inflammation before the tumor forms, unless you already have a tumor. But if you just have problems in your breast, which is what I was getting, oh, okay, that's your warning shot. You better change something, or you're headed down the road you don't want to head down. So what a fantastic tool. But we're not, and that takes me to the next thing. We're not using it as much because, well, women don't know about it, even though it's FDA approved, but insurance doesn't cover it, as you know.
Mhm.
So, and we have everything that they're doing in breast cancer screening, I think is backwards. I think they should be using mammography as the adjunctive tool and the
Mhm.
backup tool, and do thermography and ultrasound that's non-radiative and invasive first. And then if they see something weird on the ultrasound, especially the ultrasound, and they see a heat problem, then you go get a mammogram. So we're doing this backwards. And I hear so many women, that's one of the biggest complaints is, why do I have to get a mammogram before I get an ultrasound, especially if my breasts are dense? Why is this not
Right.
my choice? Why isn't it with my doctor's advice? Why can't the doctor's like, I can't, you got to get a mammogram first. That's the standard of care. That's the way,
Yeah.
it's the primary breast cancer screening tool. So
Well, it's getting easier. The good news is there's now mobile ultrasound companies that are going around the country and offering ultrasound to women without a prescription, without a mammogram. My daughter, who basically, took over my thermography practice when I was in practice, when I sold my practice. So she lives in Georgia. She has over 65 locations in Georgia and some in Alabama, north of Florida. And they now have bought an ultrasound machine, and they have a sonographer. So women can have both. They can just do thermography and ultrasound at the same time, same appointment, which is great.
that is great. So what do those cost? That's the next question I get, because the woman I go to, she's probably more expensive than average. I think I'm paying $300 for the thermogram, and the ultrasound was really expensive. I think it was like $400. So I'm like, I don't know how often I can do that.
No, it shouldn't be more than a couple of hundred for an ultrasound. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've
So
never paid more than that.
she had to travel specifically to, I think that's why she charges more, but so about 200 for ultrasound, and then thermogram about, what do you think, in a mobile unit, what are they charging?
About 250.
Same thing. Okay.
Yeah,
And
so you
that's-
get.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get your, if you've never had thermogram before, you get your first one. And then 3 months later, you get a second one to see if the pattern is the same, or if there's changes in the pattern. And if it's the same and nothing's changed, then you can come back a year later.
And it's good to get it from the same person, right? The same machine kind of.
Same company, yeah, same
Yeah.
kind of, yes.
So but I hear a lot of, I can't afford that. How can I can't afford that. Is insurance going to pay for it? And I said, unfortunately, unless you have a really talented doctor who can write the prescription around, you have to get the mammogram first. And I don't know what to tell women if they can't afford it. Unfortunately, that's what we would like to try, and that's what I would like to get changed. And what other women would like to get changed is, let's get insurance to cover all of these. And then if we could even try and get it, all of them approved as a primary screening tool, and then let it be up to the doctor and the patient. If they don't want radiation, don't force them into it, which is
Right.
basically what they're doing. And it makes women really angry.
Yeah.
On my Facebook page, I'm like, I know. So that's one, and that would brings me to what I would like to do, what I'm trying to do with this film. I lobbied Congress for 12 years. I'd like to see us, I'd like to get a coalition built. And because I have lobbied the Hill on this before with Dr. Magalko. We went up to the Hill, and they, the women on the Hill were listening to us. They were quite interested when we told them what was going on and what we could be doing. So there was a lot of interest. We just then, unfortunately, COVID hit. But I'd like to get women behind me, so I can say, I represent, this coalition, and here's a petition, and write down what we want, and everybody's on the same page. So I'm asking women out there to, watch my film, get other people to watch my film, talk to their doctors about my film, get educated, and then follow my blog. So I'll go ahead and give you a couple of websites right now, and then Dr. V, you can also do that. My film you can find at bOObsdoc.com, BOOBSDOC as in documentary.com. And then my blog is called Blog on Boobs, BLOGONBOOBS.com. And the blog, I'm going, it's like 500, 700 words, pretty quick read, but I'm going into real detail of what's, kind of peeling away the onion of breast cancer screening. So it's going to be a really good educational tool. So anyway, if women could help build this coalition, go to the Facebook page, and then I'll be shooting out eventually a petition for everybody to sign, and maybe we can go march on Capitol Hill. That's my vision. So go ahead, Dr. V, and tell us about your websites and all of that before we start taking questions.
Yes, so breastcancerconqueror.com and mybreastfriend.com, and we're all over on social media.
Great. Okay. Beth or Cinema Libra, are you there to give us some questions from the audience?
Yes, I am. I was just typing in the chat box. Here I am.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Great information, and it reminds me not to eat sugar.
Yeah.
But that's the first one. I'm like, hey, sugar. Okay, let's see. The first question we got is from Jane. And she asked, what does one do to find an educated provider when you have an issue? She has breast lumps that need to be looked at. I would like to find a doctor that I can go to and I don't have to have a mammogram. Do you have any suggestions?
Go ahead, Dr. B.
An educated provider that could help her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing is, just get online, DuckDuckGo, and start looking for, integrative healthcare provider or functional doctor. That's the best way to look for somebody like that.
Could I recommend, I'm going to go out on a limb and tell people who I would go to, just based on all the people I talked to over in Europe, over here, over in Mexico. Dr. Tony down in Hope for Cancer. I think it's Hope for the
Hope
number
for Cancer.
Cancer.
Yeah.
.com or .org, probably com. And I really liked him. He's a gentle person. He's a nice one. He's just wonderful, and he knows what he's doing. And I've seen people he's treated, and they love him to death, and they, had really good success rate. So he's definitely one of the people I would consider if I ever had a problem. So there's that personal recommendation.
Yeah. And we used to do retreats at Hope for Cancer. Every quarter, I would bring women down there in Cancun to introduce them to the work that Dr. Tony was doing. We'd consult with them together. And but since COVID, I don't want to take the chance of being stuck in Mexico for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's true. He's got a place in Tijuana and one in Cancun.
Yeah.
But best of luck to you, and just do research. I guess you just have to, So, and look at books. Pick up books. Pick up Dr. V's book and pick up Ty Bollinger's
Truth About Cancer.
Yeah, he's got all the doctors in there. Somebody resonates to you. Sorry, go ahead, Beth.
Yep. And the next question is, what is the maximum dose of melatonin daily to take to treat breast cancer? This is from Deanna. And then she asks about ivermectin. I've never actually said that out loud. So
okay. So ivermectin and breast cancer?
Yeah. And what would be the recommended dose?
Okay, so on melatonin, there's many doctors that recommend about 180 milligrams per day of melatonin. It's high dose melatonin. You can actually get melatonin IV as well. I take about 120 at night. Melatonin is a cytotoxic hormone. It literally kills breast cancer cells and breast cancer stem cells. So it's powerful antioxidant. There's no side effects. I mean, these doctors have been doing this for decades, and there's no problems with taking that much melatonin. As far as ivermectin, we know that ivermectin is antiviral. It does have some anti-tumor effects. As far as dosage, you would have to talk with the doctor who prescribes the ivermectin to you, because it has, depending on your situation, it's really according to your weight and according to the problem that you have. If you're taking it for COVID versus breast cancer, it's going to be two different kinds of dosages. So
interesting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Deanna has a few more questions, but we're going to move on to somebody else first. Kay Rosen asked, what is your recommended dose of iodine to prevent and treat breast cancer? Do you recommend iodine, iodide, or both?
Very good question. So iodine is extremely important when it comes to breast tissue and thyroid tissue. Women that are on synthetic thyroid medication are typically iodine deficient, and they're twice as likely to develop breast cancer than those who don't. Who don't have proper thyroid function. So don't guess when it comes to your health. Blood test does nothing to test iodine properly. What you'd have to do is what we call a 24-hour iodine loading test. You can get that test from Hakala, Hakala Labs, Hakala Labs. And so they'll send you a kit and you take 50 milligrams of iodine, collect your urine for 24 hours, send them a sample. And if there's a lot of iodine in your urine, that means you're probably not deficient. If you have very little iodine, then depending on the percentage, then there's a gradient of how much we would recommend, anywhere from 12.5 all the way up to 50. But then again, once you start taking it, you want to make sure that you check it every 3 to 6 months to make sure you know what your dosage is. And yes, iodide, potassium iodide and iodine are both very important.
What was the name of the test through Hakala Labs?
It's a 24-hour iodine loading test.
So that's a personal interest to me.
Okay.
Let's see. Also, Sharon asks, I'm a breast cancer advocate in advocation for one of the leading breast cancer surgeon. He's open-minded and I'm going to give him your film for Christmas. He is doing a cryoablation, is that how you say it? Which is what I did. Thank you. Which is what I did along with holistic and NOE-NED. So she's just making a recommendation of Dr. Keneally in Irvine for people.
Oh yeah, love Dr. Keneally, know her very well. I've had her on my podcast. I've been on her podcast. So yeah, she does great work.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for sharing the film with her, Sharon. Let's see, back to Deanna, who has a couple more questions. Deanna has low blood iron, ferritin, and hemoglobin levels. How long should I take Floridix supplement before checking blood again?
As low as it is, I would check about every 4 weeks because you want to make sure that you get that up rather quickly. Floridix may not be enough for you because it sounds like you're pretty low. You may need to actually take a supplement of iron. And there's some, there's some vegetarian sources, some other, that don't give you the constipation and the problem. But yeah, you definitely want to get that up pretty quickly.
Another question from Deanna. Which one would you prefer, Myomin or DIM to help decrease estrogen?
I prefer DIM. There's a lot of, research, and we know that DIM is a, concentrate of cruciferous vegetables. And, the research that I've seen and read, I prefer DIM over the other.
I take
Same
DIM.
with I3C. Yeah.
Okay. And let's see, one more from Deanna. And anybody else, time to pose your question if you have one. We have a few more minutes to take a couple more questions. This is how to protect from radiation before taking 3D DVT cum-beam dental scan.
Well, how to protect yourself from radiation?
Right. It's specific though. It says how to protect from radiation before taking 3D DVT cum-beam dental scan.
Oh,
So maybe
cone beam, cone beam
Yeah.
scan. So there's several things. So there's homeopathy, there's homeopathic remedies you can do for that. There's also a type of vitamin E called tocotrienol. So you can do, about 1,200 milligrams of that before and after. High dose curcumin, 3,000 to 4,000 grams before and after as well. So that's pretty much it.
Do you know how much radiation is in those things in the 3D dental?
I don't know.
Yeah, I want to get to the bottom of that. They always say it's low dose. I'm like, I'm not buying this, but go ahead.
Right, right. Yeah, the 3D for the mammograms. Yeah, I'm sure.
Right.
I'm seeing 3 more questions here. From Pamela, she asks, if we already had a mammogram and biopsy and it's stage 0 or precancer, but they want to do a lumpectomy followed by radiation and then hormone therapy, where would I start with a natural approach? They're moving so quickly and I'm overwhelmed. Thank you.
So that's a great question. And we see this, unfortunately, way too often. Don't go down that conveyor belt. Don't go down that path. What you want to do is you want to work with what your body's doing and give it what it needs to heal. you don't have a major situation. I mean, when we work with clients, we can see tumors that are 2 and 3 centimeters reverse. And so you're dealing with something that's very minimal, not to minimize your situation, but I would recommend, number one, that you read my book, because that's going to help you create, vibrant breast health. And it'll teach you what you can do to prevent that from getting any worse and to move down, to not go down that wrong path. So you can also just send us an email on the website. There's forms you can fill out, and somebody will call you and talk to you about, different options. So that's what I would do.
And DCIS I covered in my film, and again, it's a stage 0 in situ, means in place. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's like 20 to 25% of all breast cancers, and it's being way, 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 way overdiagnosed. They didn't used to even find it most of the time before mammograms came into being, and they started to see these microcalcifications on the mammogram going, oh, what's that? And they figured out, I mean, my gosh, I mean, what a boon for business. I think my theory is that if women didn't do mammograms, in fact, there was an amazing cadaver study. 12% of the cadavers they opened up, post-mortem, women had never had a mammogram, they'd never been diagnosed with cancer, and 12% of them had DCIS. So they had it their whole lives or whatever. They had no idea. They didn't have to get treated. They didn't have to go through the anxiety. And I think the mammogram, the compression and the radiation itself may be changing DCIS into invasive cancers. That's my personal theory, just after everything I've seen. So
yeah, totally agree with you on that, because we know radiation causes cancer. Hello, people. And your breast tissue is fluid. It's gonna change. So 1 month you may have microcalcifications and some little issues going on, but then the next month it may be reversed, it may be gone. So it's the mammography industry has created so much fear and trepidation when it comes to our breast health. And when people think of breast cancer, what's the first thing they think of is balding, sick woman who's on her deathbed. And it does not have to be that way. The breast cancer diagnosis does not have to be post-traumatic stress syndrome. If you understand what cancer is and what it's not, you can stay calm about it and heal the body.
And they're always rushing you, rush. Well, if you really have a tumor, it's been there 2 to 10 years already. So there's no rush. Weeks, days aren't going to matter. But my husband, they rushed him into chemotherapy. He wanted to go on one more vacation, and they said, nope, sorry, you got to get chemo right now. And that was that. He never got to do his vacation. I've been angry ever since, quite frankly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. A couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. So Sharon is from Los Angeles. We do need to educate breast surgeons. How do you feel about, we already talked about this, cryoablation? I can't.
Yeah, cryoablation, yeah.
Cryoablation, freezing breast cancer tumors.
Yeah, I've seen good results with it. Not all the time, but for some women it works, depending on the size of the tumor. So it's a non-surgical way to get rid of the tumor, but then you still have to address the root cause of what allowed it to grow.
Any good holistic clinic for treating breast cancer in Germany or Europe recommended?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but if you email support@breastcancerconqueror.com, we could probably give you some recommendations.
So along that line, someone's asking if you do personal consultations. Dr. V, I'm assuming if they email that email.
Support@breastcancerconqueror.com. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm typing that into the chat. Hopefully I'm spelling conqueror right. And let's see. What do you recommend for a body that gets cysts? Last question.
Cysts in the breast, I'm assuming. So whether they're in the breasts or on the ovaries, it's the same problem. You're probably estrogen dominant, probably insulin resistant. And so it's a matter of changing your diet and your lifestyle, and those cysts will reverse and heal.
How can they find information on that? Where could they find that? Is that in your book?
Yes, and go to our blog. I mean, we've got, goodness, 10 years of blogs on there. So yes, you can find all kinds of information.
Great.
Well, this was wonderful. It was highly informative to me. I know I'll be buying your book, Dr. V.
Well, thank you, Beth.
And I'm fortunate, Megan, of course, that I get to watch your film in nuggets all the time and learn more and more, as well as your blog. So we're going to follow up to everybody who registered to watch Megan's film with an email offering a discount on multi-packs of the DVD, so that those of you who have been impacted by it can share it with some friends who might be in need of this information. And we'll also include a special offer on Dr. V's My Best Friend, and then direct you to where you can find her books on Amazon. So thank you very much. Please do take a moment to like bOObs doc, follow Megan's blog, which we posted in the Q&A. If you're not on Facebook, there's an Instagram as well. Again, it'll be in the email, so you can follow. If you've seen the film, we'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to do a review on Amazon. It's very helpful for the film, for the DVD, or other platforms if you happen to be a film person and post to Rotten Tomatoes or one of the other profiles. That would be great. Again, we'll include that in the email. So on behalf of Cinema Libre, Megan, thank you for making this film. Dr. V, thank you for joining us. Another film I'll plug that we actually distribute, which Dr. V is in as well, is Cancer, the Integrative Perspective. That explains beyond what Megan has shared, and of course what Dr. V participates in, is the whole scope of the integrative process, which is the mind, body, spirit, and how important that is to cancer prevention and healing. And that I will share that as well. So thank you very much. And hopefully we'll do this again in the near future and continue to share information. And thank you all for being here and taking time to educate yourself.